One of the things that I think about women in business is that they're so overwhelmed by just so much stuff being thrown at them. I mean, I'm just trying to do business and run life. There's already a lot. People go, I want to have a balanced life. And I go, yeah, sure you can once you get to a certain scale. I think to get to a certain scale, you've got to be all in. I went back to work when my daughter was 8 weeks old. There is this trade-off. And I don't know many very successful entrepreneurs that haven't done that.
There was no downtime. There was no quality recuperation, and I was my own worst coach.
If you are ending this year exhausted, you are burnt out. In this episode, you will hear from my guests who went through fire and hell to get their businesses up and running. Marisa Fong, who went through burnout in building and selling Madison Recruitment for 8 figures after years of working hard. Rich Ellis, who's an energy and health coach, who talks about how to have a good healthy lifestyle. And Lisa O'Neill, the author and speaker, who will share tips on how to take care of yourself, especially your energy if you're feeling exhausted. This is your permission to rest and reset.
I think energy is everything. I think it's all we have. I think it's our number one currency, and I know that energy is a decision. First of all, you need to work out what is it that's draining your energy. So
one of the things that I think about women in business is that they're so overwhelmed by just so much stuff being thrown at them, and even in the running of their own business. But there's a sense for them that I know that there's a whole lot of stuff I have to learn out there, but I just don't have the energy or the mental bandwidth or the time to do a 2-day masterclass or attend another webinar or go and read 2 more books or listen to another I'm just trying to do business and run life. So
A lot already.
There's already a lot.
Did you enjoy the process? You were talking about values, innovation, fun. You were talking about being stressed as well. And I remember there's a quote that really stuck with me, and I wonder what does that really mean, and how bad is it that you worked like demons? Like, that is such a stark image.
Yep.
And do you have to do that to be really good in business, or it sounds really hard and scary.
Yeah.
I mean, was it really like that?
Yeah. I don't know if you can be in business. People go, I want to have a balanced life and all this kind of thing. And I go, yeah, sure you can once you get to a certain scale.
Gotcha.
I think to get to a certain scale, you've got to be all in. Maybe it's a focus thing. Maybe it's, from if you can be all in and be from 9 till 3, but you are 6 hours of incredible focus, maybe that works, right? But sometimes it's just availability to other people, right? Because other people don't finish at 3 o'clock, right? So your staff don't maybe finish at 3 o'clock, and they need you for support or decision making or whatever it is, right? Or access or whatever
That's
it is.
right, yeah.
So I think there's no such thing. If I look at really successful business people, typically they've invested a lot of their time and energy, and there has been some sacrifice. If I think about my family life, I went back to work when my daughter was 8 weeks old, so because, I couldn't just let Winnis, I felt some responsibility to go back and be in partnership with Winnis, and we were working together, so I couldn't just opt out for a year.
Gotcha. So you didn't do that?
No, I didn't do that. And I think about that, and luckily for me, I had a husband who was happy to go and do the, primary caregiving thing, so I didn't feel so much guilt. But there is this trade-off, right? And I don't know many very successful entrepreneurs that haven't done that. If you look at all the entrepreneurial stories, people sleeping on floors in factories, the Mowbrays talk about doing that in China and all this kind of thing. You sort of think, well, there's a window of that you have to commit to that all-in energy and time.
I love how summer is just around the corner here in New Zealand, which means one thing: let's get out there and have some fun on the beach. Who wants that? I do. My friend Jürgen at Hibiscus Jet Ski is giving away free jet ski rides for 2. I tried it, I loved it, and I thought, what a great way to get out of my comfort zone. Yep. If you want to be in to win, click the link in the description to enter. You talk a lot about burnout. You've had that happen to you.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
It's not nice, and it's something that creeps. It's not something that just happens one day and you go, I'm not feeling as energetic as I was the day before. It's a slow creep, and it wasn't until I got to the point where I was working with my mentors that I talked about 2014, 2015. We did some analysis, and part of the benefit of that process was doing some testing on cortisol, which is a hormone which some people have heard can be a negative thing. It's not a negative thing. It's a natural hormone in our body that has a very important function. But an unhealthy cortisol pattern is one of the indicators that somebody's in burnout. So we should have high levels in the morning. It's what gets us out of bed, gives us the energy to go to work and do a good day's work. If somebody has burnt themselves out because they've been pushing and not giving themselves the rest and the recuperation that they need, then slowly but surely those cortisol patterns will change. And what generally happens is that the pushing elevates the cortisol level. It gives us the energy we need because we're saying, look, I need more. So it gives us more. But that is unsustainable. And eventually our body there's a feedback loop in our system. So our system says, we're noticing cortisol levels are a little bit high. We're just going to turn down the production a little bit, just like a factory would. They wouldn't overproduce products if they weren't selling those products, right? So the production gets turned down. Then when we realize that we're in a state of burnout, we back off and find ways of healing ourselves. But then, of course, we get to the state where we've started to regain healthy patterns, but the mechanism for making that cortisol is still down-regulated. So then we're in a state where we don't have enough to create the energy that we need to get out of bed in the morning. And so then that's when we're in that stage, sort of stage 3, stage 4 of burnout, where that can be really challenging. And to come back to recover that pattern to a healthy routine again is tough, is challenging, and not one I would recommend to people. And it's something that I coach people on to help them through that challenge, whether they're healthy or whether they're elevated or whether they're flatline.
What did it look like for you when you were burnout?
Flatline. So if you imagine an XY graph, so 6 a.m. being bottom right and 6 p.m. being halfway across, and then the next 6 a.m. being at the far end, it should go very, very quickly, should go up. And then by about midday, it should start to trickle down like a slide in a kid's playground, because then that helps us sleep at nighttime because it's coming down. That drops down, melatonin kicks in, we fall asleep, have a good night's sleep. A disrupted pattern will probably have a higher top of the slide, and it probably won't drop down low enough to help us sleep at nighttime, so it will disrupt our sleep. Mine was just off the horizontal axis, and then it just did that until the end of the day. So it was almost unreadable. So there's a certain amount we should have in our system every day, and mine was about 10% of where it should have been, 20% of where it should have been. So I just wasn't making enough to give myself the energy I needed. So it was quite a wake-up call.
Why do you think it happened in the first place?
Partly personality and drive and wanting to prove myself. So a makeup of different things. It was a combination of pushing from a training point of view. In other words, I was doing lots of different things, competing in lots of different events. And at the same time, I was working really hard and doing crazy hours. And the two just did not go together. There was no downtime. There was no quality recuperation and recovery. And I was my own worst coach.
I mean, looking back, how would you have done it differently?
Looking back, I would have done a lot less events. So I would have spread those out instead of trying to do 3 big things in 12 months. I would have done one thing in 12 months. And then I would have looked at my calendar and gone, why are you starting at 6 a.m. and finishing at 7 p.m.? And obviously there would have been breaks during the day, but it's still a long day in a fairly physical role. And I just thought I was bulletproof. I wasn't. So yeah, those are the things I would do is be a bit smarter about what sort of activities I'm doing. And I would look at my working day and go, is that realistic? Is that sustainable?
With mindset, what was the biggest challenge that you faced in your own mindset, in your own career, and how did you overcome it?
I think changing that mindset to help myself recover was difficult. I ended up joining a local yoga class, which I'd never done yoga. My mother was a yoga teacher, and I never got into it. But I knew I needed to do something that was movement based. So I was moving my body, but in a very gentle, restorative way. So one of the nicknames for that is working in, as opposed to working out. We all know what working out is. Working in is the opposite. So working in is movement that gives energy back to the body. So it's very low intensity. The test would be you can do it while having a conversation or on a full stomach, and you're not going to have any discomfort as a result of that. And so that was sort of my road to recovery, if you like, was getting my head around the fact that I needed to do that as opposed to what I was doing, so that I could get to the place where my energy was restored and back to normal.
Because you talk a lot about health restoration, or restoring energy and vitality back into your life. So do you have a vital life? Do you have vitality? Is your energy restored?
It is now.
What?
Yeah. But one of the lessons that I had to bring with me from that recovery was, how do I make sure I don't go back there again? And part of that was, and this is quite a big mindset shift, is always keep something in the tank. So one of the examples that runners use is when they're running a race, they know the distance that they're looking for, and the advice is always keep 10% in the tank. So 10% for something that you're not expecting, or a fast finish. And so the fast finish means, you might sprint the last 2 kilometers or whatever it is, or you have a detour, and that detour means you need to use up that 10%. So I tried to incorporate that into all the other things that I was doing. What can I keep in the tank? How can I look after that 10% so that it's always there? I've always got a reserve.
What does it look like? What's a 10% in real terms?
Great question. So if you think about it from a weightlifting point of view, if you're bench pressing a heavy bar and you're aiming for 12 repetitions, you would do 10. So even if you were capable of 12 and you had the strength and the endurance to get to 12, you would still stop at 10. There you go.
So that's quite the opposite of what we hear people say, that, especially my personal trainer, and I used to have one, they see, they go, okay, well, you've got 10. Can you do 2 more?
Yes.
Oh, you can do one. You can do 1 more.
Classic.
So what's that about?
That's about knowing your client. Some clients do need to have that little bit of encouragement to do a little bit more. And some of that is useful from a, self-belief, self-efficacy point of view. If you didn't believe you could do those extra 2, but someone encouraged you and supported you to do those extra 2, you walk away, head held high. I didn't know I could do that. And so it's really empowering.
Yeah.
But if that client is exhausted and they come to you and they just drag themselves into the room and say, I've had a heavy day and blah, 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 it's not feeling the energy, you wouldn't ask them to do that. So it's about knowing who you're working with, what their state is, and what their body really needs, and reading the room, reading the person, looking into their eyes and just looking at the body language. What are they telling you? Where are they at? Because not everybody needs that approach, but it's still a useful approach for some. This transition between transition between evening and sleep time, or between work and sleep. So what are we doing? So typically our 24 hours is 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep, and 8 hours of me time. But the me time gets eaten into, probably by work and a whole bunch of other things that keep us busy, not at work, but probably at home or between work and home.
Yeah.
And so it gets eroded. And that's the bit that I bang on about quite a lot, because it's that transition between the all the thinking and doing of work and the need to be calm and dialing down the nervous system so that we can fall asleep and stay asleep. And often we may be able to fall asleep. That might mean a couple of drinks, which probably isn't ideal. When I say drinks, I mean alcoholic drinks, because that will disrupt our sleep, but it helps us fall asleep. So I wouldn't encourage people to use alcohol, but find ways to make that transition from the high stimulation of work and the need to be really quite calm and dialed down to fall asleep and stay asleep. So it's that That me time that's getting squeezed is the thing I focus on.
How can you do that practically?
I always like to use the example of children for usually there's a lot of parents in the room when I'm talking, and they can identify what this means. So what we do, I'm a parent, and one of the things that we did with our kids is finding a routine, from birth to going to school, those first few years, getting into a routine so that they've had their meal, they've had a bath, they've had a bottle of milk, they've had a story read to them, and then it's sleep time. So their brain sees this pattern, those things I just described, and each night that happens, the brain's, we're getting ready for sleep, getting ready for sleep. We stop doing that as adults, generally. So it's looking for what are those activities that you need to do to get yourself into a more dialed down state. And Netflix, it hasn't helped, because you'll put it on and it will immediately flick to the next episode and the next episode and the next episode. And I remember reading a quote from the CEO of Netflix saying that his biggest competitor was sleep. None of the other platforms sleep. So what do we need to do? Maybe we need to say, we'll only watch one episode tonight. Stop it. Go to bed and read, or do some yoga, or do some meditation, or do anything that will dial down the nervous system.
Well, that's the whole conversation by itself, because it's the discipline to not keep going and watching, including me. I struggle with being disciplined to stop watching Friends, and I keep watching the episode after episode after episode, because it's mindless, it's funny, I'm escaping, I'm relaxing, and I just really I sometimes just want to fall asleep in front of the TV. I just wonder why do we do that? Like, why is it so hard to stop watching TV?
Those platforms, just like social media, they want us to consume, right? So we are the product if we're consuming, and it's not easy. It's not easy. That me time that I talked about, Netflix is part of the challenge. Yeah. And it's not something that comes easily to anybody, and it's not something that you can just switch to. I think it's going back to the 1%ers. So, 15 minutes of sleep, extra sleep on top of what you normally get per night times 7 days would make a significant difference to your health. So how could you allow yourself those extra 15 minutes? In other words, one episode, half an hour of reading a book, drop off to sleep. Now, that's different for everyone. When they start and when they stop, different bedtimes, different people, different chronotypes. Some people are morning people, some people are evening people. So it's different for everybody. You can't blanket everyone with one technique, but you just got to have the intention. And I think everybody in the household has got to kind of be on the same page to an extent. Different bedtimes, there's the disruption that isn't going to work necessarily very easily. But I think, if it's something that if people are struggling with their energy, it's a place to look. Even 5 minutes, 5 times 7 days, just 5 minutes. That's an extra 35 minutes of sleep in a week. So I'm not saying you need to make some, drastic big changes, but just look for the little opportunities and just stack them.
Quick one. Mina here. Thank you for watching this episode. I appreciate you. Thank you for all your support. One thing that you can do for me is to please hit the subscribe button below. I promise you that if you hit subscribe, I'm going to work hard to make sure that my episodes are really good, that will get better and better. So, do we have a deal? Okay, back to the episode. You've found a way to keep your energy up, clearly, because you wrote a book called Energy, and it's 1 year old. Congratulations on the book. The way that we got to know each other is through a wonderful presentation that you had, and I laughed so hard. I never laughed so hard at a non-comedy event. And I'm like, how is this woman has so much vibrancy and energy and life in her? And I couldn't wait to go and speak to you afterwards. I left first. I'm like, I'm going to jump quickly because I saw you finishing your presentation and then getting off to get ready to chat to some people. And I'm like, going to go and do it. So your book about energy, you wrote many other books as well, but get it, guard it, and give it. And clearly you have worked so hard to get it, to guard it, and to give it. So
yeah. I think energy is everything. I think it's all we have. And I think it's our number one currency, and we underestimate the power of it. And I know that energy is a decision. I make a decision every day, every opportunity I accept. Like when I met you, I loved your energy. You're like, come on my podcast. I'm like, yeah. If I met you and I didn't love your energy and you said, come on my podcast, I go, nah. Right. So everything's an energetic decision for me. What I wear, where I stay, how I travel, who I spend time with, everything is an energetic decision. And once you understand that, it changes the way you are. So people say to me all the time, how come you've got so much energy? It's like, because I decided to have. And I have a lot of energy because I know what I like and I make sure I have that. I give myself what I need. So knowing what you want and giving yourself what you need, I think that it's 101 of being good at being a human, because what happens is you go out into the world giving everyone else what they want. You don't get your needs met. You're bitter, twisted, obligated, angry, frustrated, pissed off with the world. And then you're awful, and everyone goes, oh, let's not hang out with her because she's awful. And then you're like, why does no one hang out with me? I'm like, because you're awful. So, bottom line is, you're awful. And if you take responsibility for your energy, you're better. Yep. And our energy, makes us physically, like there's obviously a physical energy where you have energy and you are awake and you're not tired and grumpy. There's a physical energy where you're comfortable in your body, where your body is not in pain, or it works, or it moves, or it's not upsetting you. And that's a huge part of being human, is owning a body. And we have to look after our bodies. Like, that's so important. And I'm not 100% health freak, but I definitely go out of my way to give my body what it needs. I make sure it moves. I make sure it eats things that serve it and don't weigh it down. Like, I haven't eaten dairy or gluten for 25 years because that messes with my body. And I know that, so it would be pretty stupid of me to put those things in my body and not give it the best chance of life. And I think of our body as a rental car that we pick up at birth and we drop off at death. And it's like, look after your car, man, because you're not getting another one. Yeah. Like, sure, you can get your knee replaced or your hip replaced, but you don't, obviously there's organ transplants and things, but generally if you fuck up your body, you've got nowhere to live. So I think that's really important on a physical level. And then our mental energy is our mental clarity and what the stories we tell ourselves. And I think if we tell ourselves that the world's horrible or that I'm not good enough, then the world will be horrible and you won't be good enough and you win. Like, whatever you think is true, right?
There's so many people listening to this podcast now going, I have no energy right now and I'm really tired and I'm really exhausted. I'm burnt out. The word burnout is so overused. I have no excitement for my job. It's overwhelming me. It's taking me over. These are the pain points that some people are listening going, that's me. What do you say to those people? Where do they even begin? Because when I looked at your book, and I think the first few pages, you said you got to work on your energy. And I'm like, how do you do that? So obviously there's ways to do it. But the people listening going, where do I even start?
I think first of all, you need to work out what is it that's draining your energy. So is it physical? Like, if you've got a young baby and you are exhausted because you're up every 3 hours through the night, your physical energy is compromised. And there's not much you can do about that because you invited that baby into your world, right? So then it's like, what can you do? How do you get that sleep? How do you fill your cup? And people don't. They try and carry on with their pre-baby life with a baby, for example, which is just dumb. Because you've had this massive shift in your life and you need to change everything. And so I had 4 babies really quickly, and I had the most extraordinary midwife. And she said to me, when that baby sleeps, you sleep. So I slept when the baby slept. And that was how, and I got my sleep in, not in beautiful patches of 12 hours at a time, but in a little 2 hour, and eventually, 6 twos are 12. So it's like, you have to prioritize that, because otherwise you're no good. And that's the same as if you're starting a business. That's exhausting. So it's like, cool.
It's like having a baby, really.
Well, it is literally creating an entity. And it's like, what are you doing to support yourself in that business? And where are you getting the energy for that? And so there's the physical stuff. There's the mental stuff, what we believe, but emotional energy is really big, and emotional energy comes from what lights us up and being inspired, and and our feelings. So if you're feeling really flat, your energy goes down. And if you're feeling good, your energy goes up. And I'm like, cool, what makes you feel good? And people go, I don't know. Because you haven't been trained to create the best conditions for your life. You've been trained to do what other people do, and you've been trained to do what society wants you to do. And if you do those things, you'll get somehow rewarded, and you don't get rewarded. It's all bullshit. It's a lie.
It's like a badge of honor.
It's like this badge of honor that if you get a good, and if you do all the right things, and you go to university and you get a degree and you get a job and you turn up every day, and your life will come together. And it's like, no, you probably won't. You'll end up unappreciated, unenthused, bored, grumpy, and pissed off with everyone around you. And you're like, what are you doing about that? And that's the problem, is that people are in obligation and doing all what they should do. And instead of going, I always ask people, what's the season? What season are you in right now? So last weekend I ran my repotted retreat. And I love the idea of repotting, because I think we're all houseplants with feelings. And it's like, so what season are you in? And you're like, oh, I'm in the little children's season where I've got 3 under 5. And you're like, cool. So if that's your season, like, jump into that season. If you're in the, my kids have all just left home season, jump into that season. If you're in, I'm just starting a career, jump into that season. It's like, what is the vibe you're in at the moment? If you've just started a relationship, like, what's the most important thing in your world, and leaning into that. But I think we try and do everything all at once. And I think we don't prioritize what's important to us.